Alright, so this is a little bit of an overview of using the LittleRP and Creation Workshop, sort of a general setup and kind of a tour of the software. So first thing you want to do is plug in your LittleRP controller board. Basically, you're plugging the Arduino straight into the computer. It runs Gerbil, which is a, It's a G-code interpreter firmware. You'll notice if you go into your device manager, you'll have a USB serial COM port, and you'll need to know this number. The directions will vary, if you're using OS X and Linux, but for my instructions, we're going to be using Windows. So you can see the USB serial port is COM3. We went ahead and downloaded the current version of Creation Workshop. You can get this on the Build Your Own SLA forums. So we're going to go ahead and just extract this. I will have some pre-configured versions of the software, but this will kind of give you everything you need to know as far as if you wanted to configure a vanilla version. Say there was a new version that came out or something like that. So we're going to go ahead and one thing too, I have my projector hooked up and I have the display in extend mode. So I'm going to start Creation Workshop. And by default, you get this, you get basically the sort of the layout. And we can do things like we can import an STL. In this case, we'll do Marvin. And so you can kind of see there's Marvin. So you can see there's different tabs up here. If we go into the configure screen, we'll notice if you go to control, it's blank. And that's because none of the controls are enabled under the configuration. So in our case, we'll enable Z-axis, projector control, manual G-code, and hit apply. And so now if we go into control here, you have some different options. So what you'll do here, you see the available displays and the configured displays. If we refresh that, you can see here's our secondary display. Now this is our projector in this case. And we can hit the plus, and then we'll remove this one. So basically you only want your projector to be shown as the configured display. Make sure the output resolution is the native resolution for your projector. Under the build size, this is where you will enter in basically your projected image size. So this will vary somewhat from machine to machine, but in our case, the 1080p is about 72 wide by 40. I think it's like 41.5. Not quite certain. So what will happen is you'll end up printing a calibration object and measuring it, and that'll sort of give you the percentage of, the percentage you are off in the X and Y, and so you can multiply that out and get your actual build size volume. You could also measure the projected image, with calipers or something like that, but I find that just doing a calibration object works pretty well. So we're going to go ahead and apply that. For machine connection, this is where we'll want to make sure we select that same USB COM port. And the speed, at least for the version of Gerbil that I'll be shipping, which is 0.8A, we're going to be using a 9600 baud. Hit OK, apply. You always want to hit apply when you're doing this. We're not doing projector control or enabling a mask. So that's pretty much all I need to do under the configure machine. Under the configure slicing profile, you can see the default's fine. The first thing we'll do is we'll go into the G-code tab. The only thing you really need to modify for the LittleRP is under the lip section. In the beginning, we are going to add a delay. And we're going to do 1000 milliseconds. And what this delay does is and make sure you hit save. What the delay does in this case is, you can see this section here. This is where it lips the arm. So What you may notice with the default creation workshop is the arm will start to lift before the image has turned off. So this delay just gives the image a little bit more time to turn off before the Z rises. So you basically want to watch your Z arm. If it rises while the projected image is still projecting, then you may want to increase this delay value. That's pretty much all we need to do for the G code section. Under the options, this is where you'll do lift and sequence time. This basically says how long does it take for your Z axis to rise for the separation move and come back down and be ready for the next layer. And in this case, we're going to use a value of 3900. If you find that, don't use the auto calc, but just use 3900. If you notice that the Z axis isn't coming back down in time, you can increase this value there. The Z lift distance we're going to use is 4 millimeters. The build direction is bottom up. Z lift speed, we're going to say lift up at 100, and that's to be a little bit more. Gentle on when it separates from the vat, and then retract. That's when it comes back down. We'll say 200. In this case, we're not using a tilt mechanism, so we're leaving this value at 0. You can enable anti-aliasing here if you want. That'll sort of give you a smoother edge, but you may lose some quality. We're going to go ahead and do 2.5. So we'll hit apply. So the exposure time in the bottom layers are basically your initial layers you want to cure longer, and that's to get them to adhere to the build platform adequately, so you don't end up with your prints popping off. The downside of overexposing is that it's hard on the vat, and you also don't get a very accurate print that way. So generally we limit it just to the first number of layers. I'm going to set up this profile for 0.05, 50 micron layer heights, and generally with that I'll do 10 base layers, and the exposure time per layer and the base layer will vary depending on the resins that you're using. So we're going to go ahead and assume we're using, I don't know, made solid red, in which case it'd be something like 1400 and 4500. Creation Workshop has some calibration tools you can use to figure out the proper exposure time. I also have a calibration piece. I'll have a different video on how I determine what the proper exposure is. In addition, I'll have some spreadsheets of known values for known resins. So we're going to go ahead and apply that. So that's pretty much all I need to do for the slicing profile and configuring the machine. So now under control, you can see you could raise the Z axis manually here. You can show a calibration screen on your projector. It says a red grid. You can also do a show blank. Show blank is useful. Sometimes Creation Workshop will output a slice on the projector when it shouldn't. You do have a manual shutter, but you want to make sure that the projector is showing a blank image before you start your print. And you can always just tap the show blank and to get your projector to output blank at that point. So we'll go ahead and go back to the 3D view here. You can see Marvin. You can see the build plate just shrunk, and that's because we decreased what the machine was configured for. Before it was a bigger X and Y, and so that change will reflect in here. So you can position him on different. You can basically center him. You can make him flat. If you need to, you want to chop the bottom portion of the STL off. You can lower him below the build platform. You can get some object info. Here's where it'll tell you the volume. So in this case, it's basically like 4.6 milliliters, roughly equivalent. So you kind of know how much you should add to the build plate. You like mirror scaling, rotate view options. So I'm not going to cover everything. Sort of just like a basic overview. Next thing we'll want to do is we'll go ahead and connect to our controller. And so you can see on the control here, it's now connected. So we can disconnect and connect. And so that means that it's been able to connect to the Gerbil controller. And it's basically just using, it's just outputting plain text to it, standard G-code commands. So we'll go, once we're connected, we can do slice, and that's what this little pie deal is up here. We're going to use the default profile that we're using. We can slice. Please say the same before accepting slices. I think in this case, it's because we have, this is enabled by default, export images in G-code. We'll go ahead and disable that, apply it. Go back here, try reslicing. Yeah, so it's fine now. So it's slicing. So it's saying it's going to take about 53 minutes. We can go into the slice view, and now you can see the individual slices. This is the first slice. This is useful to tell. You want to make sure that you have something projecting on the first slice. Sometimes, if you scale an object, it won't actually be touching the platform, and this first layer or additional layers may be blank, in which case the part's not going to stick to the build platform. So I like to check this little sanity check before I do a print, and we can cycle through the different layers. And so you can kind of see this laptop's not super fast, but and these slices are pretty large, but you can see there's Marvin going through here. And then when you're ready to print, basically lower the Z arm manually until it hits the build plate. Make sure the projector is showing blank, and remove the manual shutter and hit the play button. And that's pretty much it. So, at least for this video.